How's it going, Preston Outdoors fans? And again, into this week's Let's Talk About Tackle video, we're going to be talking about, as I promised last week, we're going to be talking about jerkbaits. This is the fourth installment of these Let's Talk About Tackle videos. First week we talked about spinnerbaits and chatterbaits. Second week we talked about the drop shot. Third week we talked about the shaky head. And this week, again, we're going to be talking about jerkbaits. If you haven't seen any of those videos, they're going to be up here on the top corners popping up with the little iCard. And you're interested and want to see me talk about those, go ahead and click those. They'll be popping up along the way. But let's get to talking about these jerkbaits. Here's a quick glance. I don't have very many jerkbaits. I keep it kind of simple. Just a quick glance of what I got here. Most of them, I've got three that are these the Rapala shadow wraps. You know, you're these style baits. This is the deep one. And then I got the one that goes to 3 feet or whatever. I don't have any Rapala Shadow Wrap shads. That's the newest installment of that lineup. Those would be cool to have. And then I got the Rapala X Wraps, just the littler ones. And then I have the other ones on my rod, but this is a KVD or a Strike King KVD. I'm not even sure what size this is. I think it's the 3000 series jerkbait. Anyway, I could be wrong, but this one dives up to 7 feet. And then I got some other, I'm not even sure the brand of this one's a little trout color. I got this in a mystery tackle box subscription. But most of the time when I started using these jerk baits, I really didn't even fish them like jerk baits. The first ones that I really fished with were these X wraps. Excellent bass killers right here. I mean, when they're on that minnow pattern where they're feeding on minnows, this is something you can't hardly beat. An X wrap, and walleyes too, I found really good in the spring and the fall. But the first way I ever fished these, I can get this clown color one out here. See this here. The first way I ever fished these, I use them on spinning tackle, braided line, or fluorocarbon monofilament, but lighter braid and lighter lines and a spinning rod, because these are light. I don't think I'd ever throw these X wraps on a bait caster. They're just too light. And you know, I'd whip them out there and I'd start reeling them, and it wasn't so much as a jerk and pause. It was kind of a reel and jerk while I'm reeling. So this bait would be swimming, as you can obviously guess. It'd be swimming, and then I'd just be reeling, pulse, reeling, pulse, and then reeling, pulse. I mean, I was jerking it, but I was moving it forward at the same time. Instead of your classic throw out your bait, reel it down a little bit, or pop it and let it sit. And sometimes this was killer. Other times I wouldn't get a single bite because they wanted the pause. So after, let's see, get this other one out here. So after watching a lot of jerkbait videos and talking to some guys that are avid jerkbait fishermen, that was around last year when Rapala came out with the Shadow Wrap. And I really didn't have much confidence in this. I fished it early in the season. The water temperature when I started fishing last spring was only about 45 degrees, trying to catch some smallmouth. And I didn't have much luck with it. Couldn't catch anything with it. And I think the bait was all right. I think my experience fishing it was not good at all. And finally, I was pre-fishing for a tournament, and I was catching them on some other baits. I said, I want to know if I can catch something on a jerkbait. So I just, you know, the way I usually work this thing is I throw it out there, and I'll, depending on how deep they are, these ones obviously dive up to 8 feet. I'll throw it out there, cast it out there where we're going. I'll take 1 or 2 cranks just to swim it down a little bit, and then I'll give it a good thump. You know, you always want to, what they call jerking it on slack line, to where you want a little bow in your line from the rod to the lure, to where I hit it, you know, jerk it down, and then instantly give slack back to the bait, because what that causes it to do, as soon as you hit it, that bait will come off this way, and when you give it slack, it'll kind of actually turn around. Like I said, that bait will actually turn around. So if the bait's coming this way, pretend you're the fish right now, the camera's the fish, and this bait is sitting right here. You've come up to it, you're looking at it, and I go to jerk it, okay? I give it a good jerk. I'm going to give it 2 jerks and a little bit of slack line. So it's going to go boom out here, it's going to go boom out here, And so all of a sudden you swim up to it behind it, and I give it one jerk on slack line. This is what it's going to do. The bait is going to be jerked forward, and it's going to kind of want to swing back just naturally with the balance of the lure. And when you give it slack line, that bait all in one motion will go boom and will turn around. Now the bait is looking at you, the fish is looking at you in the face. A lot of times, if they're lethargic, that is what's going to get them. The couple pumping actions will kind of catch their attention. A lot of times when you give it that one big hit and give it slack line, that bait will turn around and look the fish in the face, and that's just a reaction strike, which will catch them. There's all kinds of different brands of jerkbaits out there. Again, these are the only ones that I've really used, the Rapala style ones. I mean, again, when I talked about last week with the different kinds of plastics you can throw on a shaky head, or 2 weeks ago I talked about different kinds of plastic styles and brands you can throw on a drop shot. It's pretty much endless with the jerkbaits. I mean, you got to find something that you're comfortable in, and that's something you can get started with. And most of the time these jerkbaits are kind of expensive to get into, and so it's something that I picked up 2 or 3 of these bigger ones, and it's something that I really had to learn with. A lot of people ask, I've even asked a lot of times, what's the perfect line to throw with it? And most of the time you want fluorocarbon, because you want the line to sink and make sure this bait gets down as far as it can. But from the consensus I've got from a lot of people who do a lot of jerk baiting, 12-pound fluorocarbon is kind of the base. If you want to get it deeper, obviously you can go down to your 10 and stuff like that, but they say 12-pound is usually what you want to start off with, and so that's what I throw on my rods, or the rod that I jerkbait with. And the big misconception is too, I want to talk about on these jerkbaits, is that everybody says it's only a cold water technique, an early spring technique, or a late fall technique, anytime the water is cold. And that's just simply not true. You can catch these fish out in the summertime. Again, this is something that I steer away from generally, that I need to get better at in the summertime. But everybody that I've talked to, and even watch anytime Kevin Van Dam fishes out fishing for fun or tournament, he's got a jerkbait on in the summertime. And in the summertime, it's more of a live action bait, to where in the wintertime, like I said, you're going to any of the cadence you want, but I usually give it a pop, let it rest, pop, pop, let it rest, and then the amount of time that you let it rest depends on water temperature and how the fish are reacting. Where in the summertime, you can really crack on that bait. You can almost just crack it, reel up the slack, crack it again. It's more of a live action bait where you can catch them all, get them to react to the bait. But the fish, obviously in the summertime when the water's warmer, they're going to be more active. So it's not something that you just pick up as soon as ice is out and put it away all summer and then come back to it just before the ice comes back up, if you're up here in the north like I am, to where those are only 2 times a season that you should throw it. You should throw this bait all year long in the right conditions. Now, for me in the spring, there's not a lot of vegetation, and if I'm usually in the spring I'll kick off and start fishing smallmouth before largemouth. So smallmouth are notorious for eating jerkbaits, and I will hardly ever fish this thing around weeds. Again, it's a confidence thing for me. I don't like it getting caught up in the weeds, but again, you can fish this like a lipless crankbait, to where if you get it stuck in the weeds, you pop up like a lipless crankbait, that thing will kind of swim out of the weeds and shake the weeds off itself, which can give you strikes. So like I said, this isn't a technique that I'm really confident in, but again, with the shaky head and the drop shot, the more I pick it up and the more I use it, the more fun I'm having with it and catching fish. Another cool thing about this is, for me, when I've caught fish on the jerkbait, just a couple weeks ago I was, me and a buddy were just casting around some open water, and I had a jerkbait on just to see if we can catch something. You know, you go to hit it, I let it pause, boom, boom. And a lot of times they eat it on the pause, so when you go to jerk it, you don't feel the bait's head turn. You just feel like it kind of swims in at you, like you got a weed on. And so I ended up doing that. I just jerked, paused, and I went to go jerk for the second time, and it felt like weeds just came at me. And so I picked up the line real quick and just started reeling. Caught a 19-inch walleye doing that. So I mean, it's just something that you got to get used to, and the bite's a little bit awkward unless they, as soon as you jerk, they really hammer it. And just mention that with the walleye thing, it's not only a bass fishing technique where bass fishing gets a lot of hype for largemouth and smallmouth, but it's a great walleye lure. I mean, because they're getting ready to, whenever they get ready to spawn or whatever, or they're moving up into those basins, or they're off points, anything like that. Even in the summertime, a jerkbait is awesome for walleye. So don't exclude it if you're a walleye fisherman. You know, pick some of these up. And again, I learned the cast and retrieve and giving it pulsation, but now that I'm getting more and more comfortable with it and getting some different baits, really obviously it's the classic jerk kind of a jerkbait instead of the cast and reel. Like I said, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Again, this is kind of what I'm going to have in my boat, in my tackle box, you know, rigged up on a certain situation when I'm fishing or whatever, and I feel like a jerkbait can give me some bites. Again, if you haven't checked out the other 3 videos before this one on the Let's Talk Tackle, please check them out. If you like the video, please hit that like button. Again, leave a comment below. Ask me some questions. I'm more than happy to answer your guys' questions, to interact with you guys. And tune in next week for when we're talking about tackle. We're going to be talking about the tube jig. Hope you guys come back next week, and thanks for watching Preston Outdoors.